If you ever find yourself in a room where the laws of physics suddenly stop making sense, if the ceiling beneath your feet suddenly becomes the floor, do not move. Because in that moment, gravity isn't failing. It is choosing a new direction. And once you take that first step, there is no coming back to the world you know. This is exactly what happened on November 14th, 1992, at 4 in the morning. It was the kind of silence that doesn't feel like quiet. It feels like something holding its breath. Dr. Elias Thorne had been alone in Lab 9 for 4 hours. He was a man of cold coffee and late shifts, a researcher known for his disappearing act, the way he could be in a room and yet seem to already be somewhere else. That night, the act became a permanent reality. At 04 a.m., the security rotation at Sector 4 realized Dr. Thorne had missed his check-in. The electronic panel showed a green light. The heavy steel door was locked from the outside, hermetically sealed as it had been all night. No one had entered. No one had exited. When they finally cut through the titanium hinges with emergency saws, the air that rushed out didn't smell like a lab. It smelled like ozone and burnt copper, the electric scent of a sky seconds before a lightning strike. The lights were still humming. Dr. Thorne's glasses sat on the desk next to a steaming cup of coffee. But the man himself was gone, subtracted from the room without a single drop of blood or sign of struggle. The lead investigator checked every corner, every vent, every inch of the floor. Nothing. Then he looked up. There, printed clearly against the white, sterile acoustic tiles of the ceiling, were 2 sets of footprints. Deep, heavy indentations made by tactical boots, walking in a straight line from the center of the room toward the back wall. Walking on the ceiling as if it were the only solid ground left in the universe. Gravity in Lab 9 hadn't just malfunctioned, it had inverted for a single man, and the evidence was burned into the architecture itself. The forensic team moved through Lab 9 the way you move through a place that has already decided it doesn't want you there. Carefully. Without touching anything, they didn't have to. The first anomaly was on the desk. Dr. Thorne's ceramic coffee mug, standard issue, government gray, was not resting on the wood. It was inside it. Not broken through. Not dropped. The ceramic had merged with the oak at the molecular level. 2 entirely distinct materials occupying the same coordinates in space, as if the boundary between them had simply been repealed. No cracks. No splinters. No heat damage. Just a cup that was, somehow, also a desk. The lead investigator had spent 19 years documenting crime scenes. He had no word for what he was looking at. He wrote phase anomaly in his notes and moved on because there was no other option. By 6 o'clock in the morning, the physics unit arrived with gravitational sensors. Within a 3-foot radius of the footprints on the ceiling, they found what the classified reports would later call a localized inversion event. The gravitational constant, the number that has held since the first second of the universe, was running in reverse. Dust particles weren't settling. They were rising, drifting upward in slow columns, collecting on the light fixtures like gray frost. Step outside that invisible 3-foot boundary, and everything obeyed the normal rules. Step inside it, and down became a suggestion. Then, they reviewed the security footage. The hallway camera showed Thorne entering Lab 9 at 11:45 p.m. Calm, carrying files and his coffee. Nothing unusual. The internal camera, the one mounted in the upper corner of the lab itself, told a different story. At exactly 03:12 a.m., the image didn't cut to static. It began to stretch. Thorne's figure at the desk, elongated, became translucent, like a reflection in water that someone had disturbed with one finger. He didn't scream. He didn't run. He looked, and this is the word every analyst who reviewed the footage used independently: confused. Like a man who's just realized the ground beneath him is not what he thought it was. In the sinal recoverable frame, his chair is rising toward the ceiling. Thorne is not being thrown. He is stepping 1 foot onto the air, 1 foot onto the wall. His body tilting 90 degrees as if gravity for him alone had chosen a different direction. The microphones recorded the sound of his boots against the tiles. 3 seconds later, the room is empty. The visual evidence was disturbing enough. What the acoustic sensors recorded was worse. These weren't standard microphones. They were seismic-grade instruments designed to detect microscopic vibrations in the facility's foundations, the kind of tremors that precede structural failure, equipment malfunction, or events that don't yet have a name in the operations manual. At 03:14 a.m., 2 minutes after the footage dissolved into white noise, they picked up something that had no business being there. A conversation. 12 seconds. 2 voices. Dr. Thorne's voice was first, identifiable by waveform analysis, confirmed by 3 independent labs. But the register was wrong. His vocal pattern carried a metallic resonance that his colleagues described, when interviewed later, as the sound of a man speaking from the bottom of something very deep. He repeated the same phrase twice, with the measured calm of someone stating a fact they have only just understood. The floor is no longer a constant. The second voice was not human. The forensic audio team's official report described it as a non-biological vocalization produced by fluctuating electromagnetic fields. In plain language, the room itself was responding. A rhythmic sequence of clicking frequencies, not random, not mechanical, that matched with near-perfect precision the vibrational signature of the ceiling tiles compressed under Thorne's boots. Whatever was communicating with him was doing so in the language of the damage he had already caused. The physics team called it the quantum trap hypothesis. The theory was simple and completely insane. Lab 9 had intersected with a pocket of inverted spacetime, a thin fold in physical reality where the standard rules ran backward. Thorne hadn't chosen to walk onto the ceiling. For him, in that moment, the ceiling was the only stable surface in a room that was liquefying around him. The objects confirmed it. A silver pen, a digital watch, a brass paperweight, all found embedded 3 inches deep into the solid steel of the lab's vault wall. Not thrown, not drilled, but fused at the atomic level, the way the mug had fused with the desk. When the watch was extracted, its gears were still turning. But they were no longer made of metal. The material was translucent, unclassifiable. Something the room had invented. And then, under ultraviolet light, on the floor directly beneath where Thorne had been sitting, not blood, not sweat, a high-density plasma carrying Dr. Thorne's complete DNA profile burnt into the floorboards from the inside out. As if a man had reached through the floor of one reality, trying to pull himself back into another, and found that his fingers had already started to belong to the wood. He wasn't trying to escape the room. He was trying to escape what the room was becoming. By December 1992, the Blackwood subterranean facility had ceased all operations in Sector 4. They didn't close Lab 9. They buried it. 3 feet of lead-lined, high-density concrete poured over the entire wing in a single continuous operation that took 41 hours and was logged officially as a containment response to hazardous radiological isotopes. The seismic sensors tell a different story. Every night, at precisely 03:12 a.m., the exact moment Dr. Elias Thorne took his first step onto the air, the concrete shell surrounding Lab 9 begins to vibrate. Not from seismic activity, not from machinery, at a frequency of 1.2 hertz. The same frequency as a resting human heartbeat. The room is still processing him. The final forensic photograph, smuggled out years later by a technician who has never been publicly identified, shows the ceiling of Lab 9 moments before the concrete was poured. The footprints are still there, but they are no longer just indentations. From the edges of each boot print, fine translucent veins have grown outward across the tiles, branching, spreading, reaching, like a nervous system that the room has grown for itself. The building learned his pattern and kept it. Dr. Elias Thorne was not killed in Lab 9. He was integrated. His consciousness, his biology, his physical mass, overwritten, absorbed, rewritten into the quantum static of a space that operates outside the boundaries of what we are permitted to understand. The room didn't consume him the way a fire consumes wood. It consumed him, the way a language consumes a word, by making it permanently, irrevocably part of itself. If you ever find yourself in a room that feels too quiet, where the air carries that sharp, metallic edge, where your shadow moves a fraction of a second after you do, look at the objects around you. Check the wood. Check the glass. If anything seems to be sinking into anything else, do not touch it. Do not look up. And do not, under any circumstances, speak out loud. Because some rooms are listening, and some rooms answer. The Lab 9 incident was not the last case of its kind. While investigators were still pouring concrete over Sector 4, something else was being documented 3,000 miles away, in the old-growth forests of the Pacific Northwest. A series of missing hikers, found weeks later, perfectly preserved inside the trunks of ancient redwood trees, their bodies fused with the wood at a cellular level, their watches still ticking, synchronized to a time that hasn't happened yet. Next case, the Redwood Prisoners.